of the Sahel.
A report by WDR's Aliu Chamin Bamako, voiced by Christopher Aticho. Now, the Commissioner of Political Affairs, Peace and Security at the ECOWAS Commission, Ambassador Abdel Fattah Moussa, PhD, has expressed confidence in the return of Alliance of Sahel States AES members to ECOWAS in the near future, describing their exit as only temporary. The members of the AES Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger formally withdrew from ECOWAS on January 29, 2025, after giving the required one-year notice. Speaking to WDR on the sidelines of the West Africa Civil Society Week in Accra, Ambassador Abdel Fattah Moussa said the ECOWAS Commission did not do anything fundamentally wrong to warrant the exit by the three nations. He outlined a series of measures undertaken and underway to make the sub-regional body more responsive to the needs of the people.
ECOWAS has already promoted the bottom-up discussions about the regional integration process, and where citizens will look at all the axes of integration and then pronounce themselves on what is right, what is wrong, where are the challenges, where to apply corrective measures. This is ongoing, and then it is going to be a binding document for the heads of state, actually to work on in order to implement. They have to implement it in the future. That is one. The second is ECOWAS itself is very self-critical. Critical of itself and looking at its practices. But like I said, when you talk about ECOWAS, ECOWAS is not the commission. ECOWAS is the heads of state, then the commission, and then the other institutions. It's a holistic approach. So we need changes at the behavior of the heads of state and also the efficiency and accountability of the commission and the other institutions in order to move forward. I don't think the ECOWAS Commission had done something fundamentally wrong to trigger withdrawal of member states. But we are still looking at it because ECOWAS is built on solidarity.
Commissioner of Political Affairs, Peace and Security at the ECOWAS Commission, Ambassador Abdel Fattah Moussa. Meanwhile, the much-anticipated hearing into the alleged Christian genocide in Nigeria by the U.S. Congress opened on Thursday. The special inquiry by the House Foreign Affairs Africa Subcommittee follows the labeling of Nigeria as a country of particular concern by President Donald Trump late last month. Trump had, in a social post, threatened the military action in the country, so the government failed to protect citizens. While dozens witnessed the hearing at the Congress, thousands streamed live for testimonies which came in from different quarters. WDR's Usman Omar reports that by the end of the first day of the hearing, the U.S. Congress was as divided on Trump's allegations.
The CPC legislation has brought immense joy, hope, and spiritual resilience to communities under siege in Nigeria.
The voice of Wilfred Anagbe of the Diocese of Makurdi, Nigeria, who virtually testified, opening the floor for the hearing. Congressman Chris Smith, who chairs the Foreign Affairs African Subcommittee, emphasized the importance of the inquiry. Two witnesses from Trump's administration testified before the committee on actions taken since the marker on Nigeria as a country of particular concern. Jonathan Pratt is a senior official at the U.S. Bureau of African Affairs.
Primarily diplomatic, but also security, also assistance, cooperation programs. This would span from security to policing to economic. We want to look at all of these tools and have a comprehensive strategy to get the best result possible.
When called upon to speak, the director of the African Program Center and International Studies said, contrary to Donald Trump's statement, the violence in Nigeria affects both Christians and Muslims. Oge Onubogu, in her testimony, advocated for enhanced security collaboration between Washington and Abuja over the rising insecurity.
A narrow narrative that reduces Nigeria's security situation to a single story and frames it solely as the persecution of Christians oversimplifies the issue. Nevertheless, the failure to hold the perpetrators of these violent acts accountable has created both a sense of impunity among the attackers and a sense of grievance in the affected communities. The U.S. can play a constructive role, but it must avoid selective intervention and address the concerns of all Nigerians.
For her part, U.S. Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs faulted President Trump's military threat to Nigeria, describing it as reckless. Back in Nigeria, the population is divided over the allegations of Christian genocide, but united on a common front, the call for the Tinubu-led government to end terrorism, banditry and other forms of insecurity.
Well, still in Nigeria, particularly in Niger State, where panic has gripped a school community after armed bandits attacked St. Mary's private Catholic secondary school in Papri, Agwara local government area. Early Friday, an unknown number of students were abducted along with some teachers. The security guard, unconfirmed reports suggest up to 52 students may have been taken, but authorities say they are still verifying the figures. Security forces, including police, tactical teams and the military, have launched a coordinated manhunt in nearby forests. The police commissioner says every effort is being made to rescue the victims safely and is urging residents to stay calm. He also revealed that the school is under investigation for reopening despite a government directive suspending academic activities in high-risk areas.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Meanwhile, UNESCO is calling for stronger support for a new regional action plan aimed at tackling misinformation and strengthening information integrity across West Africa and the Sahel. At a conference held in Dakar, Senegal on Thursday, the UNESCO Regional Office presented the outcomes of its regional meeting on information integrity held in Cape Verde last September. During that regional consultation, representatives from across West Africa discussed the coordinated responses to disinformation. Imo Edit reports.
Across the region, ongoing political and social crises have fueled the rise of disinformation, enabling the spread of harmful content that threatens social cohesion. The prior conference sought to equip states with practical mechanisms to counter misinformation and disinformation. At the meeting in Dakar, UNESCO Regional Director Dimitri Sanga called for long-term investment and coordinated action.
And this action plan that we have, we would like to move with the same set of partners, even those who are not in prior, but who are working on these issues, to come and support the country's stakeholders, the media, the young people, the communities, the government itself, and so on, to move forward.
Canada, a key supporter of the prior meeting, also reaffirmed its commitment. Matthew Babin, Counselor for Political and Public Affairs at the Canadian Embassy in Senegal, pledged continued Canadian support for strengthening information integrity in the region.
I mentioned in my intervention earlier that we're hosting the G7 Secretariat. You can imagine in the future broader support, sharing lessons learned, because it's also about that. We're facing that challenge right now as well in Canada, and we have examples of disinformation campaigns that are taking place. But sharing that knowledge with African entities, African states, civil society, supporting civil society, we play a key role.
Disinformation continues to undermine young democracies across West Africa, and the conference produced several recommendations to help states reinforce their efforts to combat the growing threat.
Imo Edet with that report. Let's turn our attention to Foreign Assembly's visit to Russia. The president of Togo's National Council of Ministers held a meeting 2 days ago with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. The discussions focus on bilateral cooperation between Lomé and Moscow, as well as collaboration in the diplomatic and security fields. Francis Boniface completes the story.
The visit of the president of the Togolese Council of Ministers facilitated a rapprochement between Moscow and Lomé. Following a meeting between Foreign Assembly and Vladimir Putin, several decisions and commitments were made. Among them was the opening of a Russian embassy in Lomé in 2026. Vladimir Putin confirmed his strategic decision, which he said should further strengthen cooperation and allow for the establishment of an intergovernmental commission. For Lomé, this meeting is part of a strategy to diversify its international partnerships at a time when traditional Western powers are seeing their influence challenged on the continent. This bilateral meeting thus offers a new opportunity to deepen a solid relationship built on trust, sovereignty, and mutually beneficial partnership, emphasized Foreign Assembly. Another topic discussed was security cooperation to combat terrorism in the Sahel. Moscow aims to expand feel strengthened.
Francis Boniface reporting there. A delegation from the International Criminal Court (ICC), led by Deputy Prosecutor General Maman Manjai Njang, is currently in Guinea. Its members were received in Conakry by Prime Minister Amadou Riba. The purpose of this mission is to ensure that the appeals process, the trial of the events of September 28, 2021, is carried out with the same rigor as the first instance proceedings. Augustine Coley has more in the following report.
The judicial case related to the September 28 massacre remains a current issue in Guinea. Although the initial verdict was delivered on July 31, 2024, the country is now moving towards organizing the appeals trial. It is in this crucial phase that the visit of the ICC delegation takes place, as they have come to support Guinea until the final conclusion of the case. According to the Minister of Justice and Human Rights, this meeting with the head of the Guinean government is part of ongoing commitments already made between Guinea and the Office of the ICC Prosecutor, which provides for continuous monitoring of the progress of the trial related to the events of September 28, 2009. One of the major challenges of this mission is to ensure that the judicial momentum does not weaken during the appeal stage. Mam Manjayang thus recalled that the success of this second phase of the trial, along with the complementary aspects of the case, remains essential for the victims to finally obtain full and irreversible justice. For his part, the Prime Minister assured the ICC delegation of the Guinean authorities' full readiness to clarify this matter impartially. He also emphasized the value of this cooperation with the ICC and reaffirmed the government's commitment to mobilizing the necessary resources to ensure the continuation of the judicial process in strict compliance with international standards.
A report by Colonel Alpha Ibrahim Balde and presented by Augustine Coley. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world at wadr.org. Here is a reminder of our top stories. UN Special Envoy to West Africa and the Sahel arrives in Mali over rising security threats. U.S. Congress begins hearing into alleged Christian genocide in Nigeria. An ICC delegation meets with authorities in Conakry for justice in September 28 Stadium massacre, and UNESCO poses a new regional action plan to curb misinformation. Still ahead in the news, we also have guest interview and sport news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In Côte d'Ivoire, more than 1,000 applications have been accepted for 255 seats in the National Assembly. 60% of these applications were submitted by independent candidates, including a significant number of young people. What explains this trend and enthusiasm, well, especially from young people to contest for office? Well, an Ivorian political analyst, Nuruddin Ole, tells us more.
In the selection of candidates within the parties, there is a problem. There is a lot of eagerness and ambition. Everyone wants to be nominated, but there is a framework that limits the number of candidates who can be selected. The room for maneuver is quite small for the parties, so there are several types of independent candidates. Some are frustrated because they were not chosen. There are also other initiatives, people who are not in political parties who think that at the local level, in the different regions, since these are local elections, to put it that way, they have what it takes to compete and be accepted. So all of this plays a role. I believe that today, in Côte d'Ivoire, it must be said that traditional parties still shape the political landscape to some extent, but people need space. And therefore, the traditional channel of the parties often becomes limiting. People want to express themselves and participate in the competition. When you look at the median age of the candidates, it is often people over 60. And today, young people feel that the elders have been on the political scene long enough, and this creates an expectation that pushes them to enter the race. Because it's always the same people on the scene. At some point, the youth tell themselves themselves that they must take responsibility because they too have strengths to bring forward. And I think that is a very good thing.
Ivorian political analyst Nuruddin Oye Ole. Now, in the Gambia, a technical report highlighting the growing challenges posed by the urban heat island effect in Banjul has been unveiled by the Monitoring, Reporting and Verification for Climate Action Program. The launch, held under the theme Building Climate Resilient Cities, Addressing Urban Heat Challenges in Banjul, was organized in partnership with Banjul City Council. The MRV was implemented in the Gambia with support from Environment and Climate Change Canada.
The report by the Monitoring, Reporting and Verification for Climate Action Program provides a detailed assessment of how rising temperatures are affecting communities in the capital. Presenting the findings, Principal Investigator Omar Marina said the study assessed 4 communities within Banjul. The most affected area, Haddington Ward, recorded peak temperatures above 30 degrees Celsius, far higher, posing significant public health and environmental concerns. Speaking at the event, the Deputy Mayor of Banjul, Abdul Aziz Gaye Dahaba, stated that the Gambia is increasingly exposed to climate risks, including sea level rise, erratic rainfall, and flooding.
These risks threaten public health, critical infrastructure, and the development gains our nation has achieved over recent decades. National policymakers and the ministries should provide the legal and institutional frameworks to ensure that these measures are sustained over time. By working together, we can develop integrated strategies to reduce urban heat, enhance green infrastructure, improve drainage and sewage systems, and strengthen climate resilience in Banjul.
The MRV program argues that without urgent adaptation measures such as increased tree cover, better urban planning, and heat risk early warning systems, the urban heat island effect could worsen health vulnerabilities and drive up energy demand in already overstretched communities. For policymakers, the report serves as both a warning and a roadmap urging sustained investment in climate-resilient infrastructure as the Gambia confronts a warning future. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Sangdana Mendy reporting from Banjul.
Now, the Liberian National AIDS Commission Office laments inadequate funding challenges ahead of 2025 World AIDS Day. Recent data from the Commission indicates that around 36,000 Liberians are living with HIV and AIDS, representing a national prevalence rate of 0.9%. This marks a decrease from the 2.1% reported in the 2013 Liberia Demographic and Health Survey, signaling notable progress in the nation's fight against the epidemic. Testing coverage has improved substantially, with 31,000 individuals aware of their HIV status.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Now, UNESCO is calling for stronger support for a new regional action plan aimed at tackling misinformation and strengthening information integrity across West Africa and the Sahel. At a conference held in Dakar, Senegal on Thursday, UNESCO Regional Office presented the outcomes of its regional meeting on information integrity held in Cape Verde last September. During that regional consultation, representatives from across West Africa discussed the coordinated responses to disinformation. Well, Dimitri Sanga is UNESCO Regional Director in Dakar office here.
This conference that took place in Praia brought together the 15 countries from West Africa and the Sahel. When you look at these countries nowadays, they are going through a number of crises: economic crisis, security crisis, climate change. These are countries where you have a growing population, mainly youth, who like to have opportunities, to have access to education, to health. And all these problems and issues are discussed through different segments of the population. Now, when you are facing crisis, when people are not happy, when there are social economic crises, information becomes very important. And today, with the proliferation of social media, of artificial intelligence, everybody can create content. And this leads to misinformation and disinformation. So this conference in Praia was to bring together these countries and try to find ways, framework, that will help them to deal with this issue of misinformation and disinformation. Why we wanted to bring these countries together? Because every country could do that alone. It's because in this era of social media, of AI, it transcends the border. If these 15 countries have different regulations in their countries, and of course, these creators of misinformation and disinformation will move from a country to another. There's a need for them to come together, not to harmonize their rules and regulations, but to have some common principles that will make it difficult for disinformation and misinformation producers to prosper across these countries.
How do you plan to integrate human rights throughout the execution of this action plan? Because
access to information is a human right. The same way education is a human right, access to health is a human right. So people really need to have the right to access to the information, but to the right one. Unfortunately, nowadays, with the proliferation of social media, they can access both the right information and the wrong one.
Right.
That's why this conference was very important. When everything that we have done is to say you can regulate, but you have also to take into account the fact that people have the right to have access to the information.
And you also mentioned ensuring the rights of individuals, that is liberty expressions remain, just like you said. What methods do you think could be used to let that happen, to allow people to express their rights, disseminate information, but also to prevent them from sharing this information?
Almost in every country you have regulators who are dealing with these issues of information. And there are rules, very clear one, policies in each country that is dealing with this kind of things. And of course, you can have extreme cases where it can be criminalized and so on. Yes, in certain circumstances this might be the case, but you need to look at a number of principles that will bring you to say that this kind of deviation from sharing the information can be criminalized and so on. All this is part and parcel of what we are proposing there. So I think that there's a balance that we need to strike between liberty of expression and providing information that will be misleading. And this is not very easy thing to do, but there are a number of principles that we have put into these policies that can help countries to really decide and strike that balance.
Dimitri Tsanga is UNESCO Regional Director for West and Central Africa. Well, in sports, Africa's top club competition kicks off, that is CAF Champions League, this weekend with a blockbuster match. Day one holders Pyramid hosts Rivers United of Nigeria in Cairo, while Al Ahly welcome JS Kabylie and Mamelodi Sundowns face Giant Killers Saint Etoile Lupopo. Al Hilal meets MC Algier and Esperance open at home to Stade Malien. Well, the opening round sets the tone before the tournament pauses for AFCON later in the year. Pyramids, fresh from a Super Cup win, headline Group A as RS Barkhan, also open at the top of Dynamos. In Group B, 12-time champions Al Ahly start strong despite injury concerns, leading on new signing and experience in Cairo. Group C all delivers a coaching intrigue as Al Hilal, playing home matches in Kigali, face Runalia Mokwana FC MC Algier, while Sundowns host Lupopo in Pretoria. And in Group D, 4-time champions Esperance de Tunis begins against Stade Malien, with Simba facing Petro de Luanda in the order tie. Well, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democrats Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Fali Luso and Ismaila Kamara for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, Instagram, at Facebook at WDR English. Well, coming up next is WDR Security Program in the Sahel with Abdullahi Hassan. I am Sankule Janko. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Niba County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM, Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and